You know that specific exhaustion after a group project where you did most of the work, sat through 3 unnecessary meetings, and somehow ended up with less than you would have produced in 2 hours by yourself? That is not antisocial behavior. That is not a flaw. Psychology says it is actually a sign of something most people never develop. This video reveals 5 psychological secrets about people who work better alone. And if you have ever been called a lone wolf or told you are not a team player, this is going to reframe everything. Number 1, their focus is a different category entirely. When other people need background noise, conversation, and group energy to stay motivated, you need the opposite: silence, space, 0 interruptions. This is not preference. This is neurology. Psychologists call it deep work capacity, the ability to sustain intense and broken concentration for extended periods. Research shows that people with high deep work capacity produce output in solo conditions that is not just better, but categorically different from what they produce in group settings. Every interruption does not just pause your work, it costs your brain 23 minutes to return to the same depth of focus. In a group environment, that cost is constant. When you work alone, that cost disappears entirely. Number 2, they process everything internally before speaking. In a group meeting, most people think out loud. They process by talking. They arrive at ideas through the conversation itself. You arrive at the conversation with the ideas already formed. Psychologists call this internal processing. Your brain works through problems completely before externalizing anything. This means in group settings, you often appear quiet or disengaged while actually doing the most sophisticated cognitive work in the room. The problem is that group environments reward visible thinking. The person talking the most looks the most engaged. You are doing the opposite and getting penalized for it. Pause for a moment. How many times have you thought of the perfect solution after the meeting ended because the meeting itself prevented the kind of thinking you actually needed? Number 3, they set standards no group would agree to. Here is the psychology of group work that nobody talks about. Groups naturally gravitate toward the standard that requires the least conflict, not the highest quality, the most acceptable quality. You do not work that way. When you work alone, your standard is entirely internal. Nobody can negotiate it downward. Nobody can convince you that good enough is good enough when you know it is not. Psychologists call this autonomous quality regulation, the ability to self-impose standards that external accountability would never sustain. This is why group projects feel physically uncomfortable to you. It is not the people. It is watching the standard of your work get negotiated into something you would never have accepted alone. Number 4, their creativity requires solitude to exist at all. Research from psychologist Hans Eysenck shows that creative people are significantly more sensitive to external stimulation than the general population. The same stimulation that energizes a group setting actively disrupts the internal state that creative work requires. Your best ideas do not come in brainstorming sessions. They come in the shower, on a walk, at 2 in the morning when everything is quiet. That is not random. That is your brain finally having the conditions it needs to access the deeper connections that produce original thinking. Pause for a moment. Think about your best work. Where were you when you produced it? Probably alone. Number 5, they take complete ownership in a way groups cannot. In a group, responsibility is distributed. When something fails, there is always a shared accountability that softens the blow for everyone. When something succeeds, the credit fragments. You are built differently. When you work alone, you own every decision, every failure, every success completely. That level of accountability is psychologically uncomfortable for most people. For you, it is the only arrangement that makes sense. Psychologists call this internal locus of control, the deep conviction that outcomes are determined by your own choices rather than external forces. This is why working in groups often feels like a loss of agency rather than a gain of support. You are not refusing teamwork. You are refusing to dilute accountability to a level where nothing is really anyone's fault. So if you have spent your career being told you need to collaborate more, be more of a team player, stop going off and doing things your own way. The problem was never you. You focus at a depth groups cannot access. You think before you speak instead of thinking by speaking. You protect your standards from negotiation. You create in conditions that groups destroy. And you take ownership in a way shared responsibility never allows. That is not a personality defect. That is a rare psychological profile that produces the best work of anyone in the room. The question was never whether you work well with others. The question was whether the environment was designed for the way your mind actually works. Subscribe for psychology that finally explains how you are wired. A like helps more than you know. And watch this next. 5 secrets about people who hate being bossed around. Because a mind that works this deeply deserves to be protected, not just understood.